From Evil Seeds, a Turok novella by Fabian Nicieza. This story takes place after the death of Primar Gen and was released on the official Turok website from December 16, 1998 to April 1, 1999. Chapter 5. Clogged Paws. At times like this, it helped Joshua Fireseed, college baseball superstar and campus stud from Oklahoma College at Oklahoma City, to be Turok, the techno-magic Sequin Native American protector of the gateways between Earth and an interdimensional sewer called the Lost Land. If his family lineage hadn't obligated him to become Turok, Josh would never have the kinds of weaponry at his disposal needed to stave off a platoon of hostile alien soldiers while wedged in between the cavernous crevices of a building-tall sentient alien landmass hive. Of course, Josh mused, as he ducked under the stinging heat of plasma fire. If it weren't for the fact that he was Turok, he wouldn't even be in this mess to being with. He checked a mental scorecard to make sure he had all the players straight. Came to the Lost Land with his best friend and fellow adventurer, Barry Hackowitz, in order to undertake a mission to stabilize the shifting tectonic plates which made up the jigsaw puzzle environment known as Galiana. Check. Joined with a multi-species scientific survey team from the sprawling, peaceful city-state of Forever Light. Led by his friend, and hopefully someday more than just friends, Aiden, the bioelectric being who served as the ambassador of Forever Light, they undertook a mission to stabilize the fragile energies coursing through the ley lines of Galiana by using an environmental alien species called the Barakians as a lightning rod for this currently uncontrolled energy. Check. Whew. Went inside a pregnant Barakian who was about to give birth to a bouncing baby Rhode Island in order to attach a cybernetic probe which would attune the Barakian's geoelectric, biotectonic wavelengths with those of the ley lines. The experiment would determine if the newborn, once attached to the hive landmass, could create a domino effect within the group hive itself to attenuate their geoelectric spectrum to the whole of Galiana, thereby stabilizing the energy threads which bound the piecemeal environment together. Check. Double whew. Watch the whole thing actually start working, albeit at the cost of riding the wave of the baby's birth, until a wild card got thrown into the mix. An unknown alien race appeared to have a problem with the entire plan and opened fire on the survey team without so much as a how do you do. Check. Tossed Barry into a doorway in time and space a Turok can create using his folding eye lens on his headband in order to keep Barry out of the line of fire. Check. Fought the mystery meat aliens. Check. Watched as the Barakian hive took exception to having a fight blowing up chunks of its butt, rose in its totality and in quite a snit, and tried to step on him like an ant. Check. Ran towards the big toe of the alien to avoid getting stepped on. Hid inside the wide canyons and gaps that lined the earthen creature. Check. Climbed up the mountain in search of the survey team to make sure they're still alive. Check. Encountered aforementioned unknown alien soldiers somewhere around the Barakians' thighs and got pinned down by a fusillade surge of weapons fire. Check. And that brings us up to speed. Now, Josh wondered, what do I do to get past these aliens in order to reach the survey team? As usual, he avoided overthinking the situation, pulled out a fission cannon from the seemingly empty satchel at his waist, picked the shortest distance between 2 points, yelled and charged forward, pumping fission grenades like he was flicking tic-tacs. The alien soldiers who weren't blown up into bite-sized chunks turned tail and scramble up the rocky mountainous landmass. Mistake, since up was the direction Josh wanted to go, and having the majority of the mysterious aliens clambering awkwardly up repelling lines made them easy pickings. Josh pulled out an automatic crossbow, ran his fingers quickly across the targeting systems, setting the weapon to locate body thermal heat as he fired off a volley of precision-timed glowing energy arrows. The aliens dropped like little fake people from every Japanese monster movie Barry ever forced him to watch at 4 in the morning. Josh grabbed hold of the lines the aliens had been using to rappel down the side of the landmass and started to work his way up. His thoughts drifted to Aiden, determined to make sure she had survived the sudden, tumultuous rise of the Barakian. He was, by heredity and environment, the kind of guy who avoided real emotion and meaningful relationships with the same fervor a newborn boy would avoid a circumcision if he had the motor skills. Is that why he had begun to fall in love with Aiden, he wondered. She was a bioelectric being after all. Her ability to assume physical form was a complex combination of holography and gravity distortions, and a temporary physical shell at that. Talk about a relationship with very little chance of ever having a chance. Almost, Josh hated to admit, the perfect kind of relationship for him. He had seen what being Turok had done to so many of the men in his family line, their wives and their children. He himself was the product of a family that was so dysfunctional that it took his becoming Turok to actually begin bringing them together. His arms ached from the strain of rope climbing. The last 18 hours had been non-stop. He was beginning to show the effects that would have exhausted a normal man much earlier. Josh knew he needed to take a break, but he also knew that he couldn't afford to. The Barakian was still moving about, like Mount Everest on a drunken binge, and he also feared that at any given moment, more of those mysterious alien hardasses could. The pain of a plasma tracer beam disrupted his reverie as it sliced into his left shoulder. The shock forced him to release his handhold on the rope. Josh fell 15 yards before managing to grab the rope with his right hand. The momentum twisted him hard into the crevice wall, absorbing most of the force with his injured left shoulder. Everything went black for a second, and Joshua practically willed himself to remain conscious. He opened his eyes, blinking past the sweat that clung to his eyelashes. He could see nothing. He tried moving upwards again. A pencil-fine plasma tracer seared the rocky hide of the Barakian inches above Josh's outstretched hand. Their mistake, he thought, tracking the source of the shot. He wrapped the line around his right shoulder and waist for support. Using his legs against the crevice wall for balance, he reached into the light burden and pulled out a napalm gel spray gun. Josh knew the maneuver would be tricky, but it was the only way to flush out whoever was above him. He aimed about 200 yards above him and fired off several rounds of gel-filled grenades at the various crevices that lined the interior of the landmass, like vertical dried riverbeds. The grenades exploded, releasing a rushing stream of flammable napalm that slid down the crevice inlets. Josh heard several shouts of surprise and watched as a dozen soldiers futilely tried to avoid the rushing napalm stream. Some fell by him, others were too wedged into their hiding places to move and were incinerated in painfully scrunched positions. But Josh knew his problems were only starting, because the napalm rivers were rushing like open bleeding wounds down to his level, including one stream along his own hiding nook. The rope was far enough away from the crevice lines that it had avoided turning to ash upon the explosion of the grenades. It had caught fire, though. Josh realized he only had seconds to attempt a very tricky maneuver before the rope line that kept him from falling half a mile to his death burned all the way through and let him drop. He pushed off the wall with his legs, summoning all the strength he could channel through the leggings over his jeans that were mystically imbued with the enhanced speed and strength of a cougar spirit. He bounced towards a far point in the cramped crevice cavern ways that didn't have the napalm stream sliding down it. He pushed off that wall at a 45-degree angle, towards another crevice that didn't have the stream. While he did this, the napalm stream beneath his rope line rushed past the point where he had originally crouched. He allowed the line's natural momentum to carry him back to his point of origin. He touched down, spread eagle above the rivulet of burning napalm left clinging to the rocky wall. The fires missed his boys by inches. Josh looked up, breathing a sigh of relief, knowing that the napalm fire would soon burn to an ember trail and he could continue on his way. Now, all he needed to do was grab hold of a safe rope line before the one he was precariously perched on burned all the way through. He looked around, seeing a clean line 20 feet away. A simple matter, he thought, to rappel sideways and rock walk to the line. That's when his rope snapped. The sound echoed harshly in the narrow chambers. Joshua heard the ripping sound bounce off the walls surrounding him like a taunting catcall. It kept following him as he fell further into the inky darkness. End of chapter. From Evil Seeds, a Turok novella by Fabian Nicieza.